Good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar from Telerik India. This is a series of webinars we do almost every Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. India Standard Time. In fact, this is the second webinar for the year of 2015, and we have a lot more to come. Please go to telerikhelper.net to have a look at the schedule. We currently have the January-February schedule put up. Today we're going to be looking at getting started with ASP.NET vNext. Well, it's no more vNext. I think Microsoft has decided to name it ASP.NET 5. So that's what the version will be. A little bit about myself. If you're a regular to our recordings, you would have known that's the face behind the mic now. My name is Lohit GN. I work as a technical evangelist with Telerik in India. I'm also a Microsoft MVP in the area of ASP.NET and IIS. That's my coordinates, lohit.nagaraj@telerik.com. I'm also available on Twitter. Those are some of the website links you may want to bookmark. telerikhelper.net is a place where we can kind of keep writing a lot of articles on how to do things with our Telerik controls. Telerik.com is our global website. So what's the agenda for today? We're going to be starting out with looking at, what is a modern web. Believe me when I say this, it's one of the best moments to be in a web development or web area. Web has seen a lot of changes, and then it couldn't have been better if you were a web developer. So we're going to talk a little bit about what exactly is a modern web, right? And then how does ASP.NET 5 makes it good, or how is ASP.NET 5 as a technology, as a platform is good for modern web, and also take a look at or kind of talk about certain aspects of when it comes to modern web. For example, agility, like how agile will be, or in terms, it's not the project management agile, but how fast you can kind of adapt to things, how fast you can do your workflows, the development workflows. Are you cloud ready? How can you be cross-platform? Those kind of things. We'll try to take a look at those in terms of the modern web perspective. And of course, we'll end up with a big demo. I'm going to be spending maybe 15 minutes or so on the talking points, and then the rest of the things will be the demo. So this is the agenda. This is what we're going to be looking for next 15 minutes or so. So let's get along. Before I kind of talk about what is ASP.NET 5, this slide was pretty interesting for me. Did you know that there's 1.8 billion active installs of .NET? Yes. This is actually a prime kind of a number that I've seen from Microsoft. In fact, just recently, like 6 months back, in TechEd North America, this was shown by Scott Hanselman. So this kind of mind-boggling number, like 1.8 billion active installs of .NET, which ranges from, it's just not your typical server, but rather this ranges from 64K embedded system, a tiny mini, systems, to PCs, tablets, phones, and up to 64-bit cloud servers, and 6 million .NET professional developers, and which is good for us. As a company, Telerik as a company, we are pretty much into .NET, so we pretty much have a huge, developer base. And then these numbers are quite interesting to understand. Like 1.8 billion active installs, 6 million .NET professionals available there. So if you are one of them, this is the most interesting phase in our career, in our path. So kudos to you. Now coming to the actual agenda thing, what is a modern web, right? So when it comes to web frameworks, typically today, if you have to build a web application, the first thing that comes to your mind is, okay, what form factors do I support? Am I supporting phone? Am I supporting tablet? Am I supporting laptop? Should I support desktop? So typically, you have these choices to make. And why would you make these choices? Because you want your web pages to run on all these form factors. How do you make this your web page to work on all these form factors? Well, you make it responsive, right? You start doing responsive design. That's why the community frameworks like Bootstrap, the Foundation, these are becoming very popular because they let you build your web pages using this kind of virtual grid system which adapts itself to different form factors. Not only that, the client frameworks play a huge major role in terms of the web frameworks itself, in terms of the modern web itself. For example, we have Kendo UI, and then there is AngularJS, and there is EmberJS. So these are all some of the client framework which are popular in terms of building HTML5 pages or sites or apps. And you of course have to be cloud ready. It's all about, okay, how fast can I move my web application to cloud? So your code needs to be cloud ready. In fact, it's a drawback in today's developmental era that if you are an ASP.NET, what you run on your desktop is not the same ASP.NET code which runs on your cloud server or cloud. For example, if you want to move to Azure and then you're using a session, you will know that the in-proc or the in-memory session state does not hold good when it goes to cloud, because in the cloud you have load balancing going on, and then you will scale out, meaning you will have one VM, one app server today, and then immediately you need 10 app servers. So cloud allows you to scale, but if your code does not follow those paradigms, so you cannot get those session things going on well. So this pretty much is what kind of governs a modern web framework. Of course, when it comes to Visual Studio, or when it comes to Microsoft, the tooling support has been always great. The Visual Studio follows the standards. It pretty much gives you the HTML5 editor, the JavaScript editor, the CSS editor. They all are built with standards in mind. They all are built with standards in place. Not only that, Microsoft is slowly moving towards providing you more control in terms of the tooling itself. For example, I want to make a change in my HTML page, and then I want it reflected directly on the web page. I don't want to do a refresh of my project, so that's available through browser link. Similarly, if you edit in your browser, you want the code changes to be back inside your Visual Studio, inside your HTML file. Well, that's possible through the browser link again. Adopting popular third-party tools. So basically, Microsoft has kind of gone towards where community is going. It has an inbuilt out-of-the-box support for Angular. It has it has gone ahead and then embraced Bootstrap. They did not reinvent any new layouting system. They saw that Bootstrap is highly popular, so they went ahead and said, okay, let's use that. Angular is one of the widely used opinionated software client-side framework. So they said, okay, we're going to support Angular out of the box. So you see all the directives of Angular coming in, inside Visual Studio. So basically, Microsoft saw that this is what makes up a modern web, and then we got to be there. We got to kind of help the community out. So ASP.NET 5 was actually built keeping in mind all this modern web perspective. So ASP.NET 5 is totally modular. It allows us as developers to have a faster development cycle. They are trying to seamlessly allow seamless transition from on-premise to cloud, meaning I just want to take my folder, which is my web app, and then just move it to cloud and it should work. Many a times we have seen that, hey, it works on my system in the local development environment, but I host it on cloud, it doesn't run the way it's supposed to. That's because there is a difference between your dev environment to the production environment, and of course, that's the change that's going to make those differences. Of course, now with ASP.NET 5, we can choose our editors. It's not mandatory that you be with Visual Studio. I can open up a Sublime, which is a popular text editor, and then start building ASP.NET 5 code. Of course, the ASP.NET 5 is completely open source. In fact, just yesterday, the .NET Core CLR was made open source. I'm not sure how many of you have heard this, but with ASP.NET 5, there are two CLRs that's going to be there, the full stack CLR, or the full framework, as we call it, the .NET full framework, and then there's a .NET Core CLR. The .NET Core CLR is a subset of full framework, but it's a highly optimized for cloud scenarios, and it's highly optimized for cross-platform scenarios, meaning I can take that Core CLR, put it on a Linux machine, and then have my ASP.NET running there. So that's what the thing about ASP.NET 5. It's an open source. You can actually contribute back to ASP.NET 5, go clone, and then start giving out a pull request. And then, of course, as I said, it's a cross-platform. Plus, ASP.NET 5 is going to be faster when it comes to other things. So let's spend maybe another 5 minutes or so delving deep into each aspects of it. So agility, when it comes to agility, so we need faster development cycles. So how is ASP.NET 5 going to help you? Now everything in ASP.NET is going to be shipped as packages. Until and unless you ask for it, it won't be available. Meaning, just go back to previous editions of Visual Studio or previous editions of the ASP.NET platform. When you said 5 new ASP.NET project, there was a lot of things that was actually pumped in, and you never knew that those many things were there in the pipeline. Now with ASP.NET 5, what happens is you just ask for a ASP.NET web application. It can be as raw as a metal, and it can just run from that metal itself. And then if you need additional features, for example, I need a session, I need entity framework, I need MVC, you have to opt in as a developer. So Microsoft is saying that, hey, features will be shipped as packages, and then framework also ships as part of your application. So it makes it faster in terms of, like, I just go and then say, hey, I need this particular feature, and then that's it, it's there. And of course, you get more control now when it comes to servers, production servers. I'm pretty sure many of you are still in either .NET 2.0 or many of you are in the .NET 4.0. You cannot go to the latest, let's say 4.5.1 or the next one will be 4.6. That's because your IT does not allow you to put a new runtime because it may break other applications on your production server. So now, from now onwards, what happens is in these scenarios, what you can do is you can actually target to core CLR, and then the core CLR will be packaged within your application. So your new app will not depend on the runtime that's there in the GAC. Rather, it depends on the runtime which is packaged in a packages folder within your application. So what Microsoft is going to do is they're going to just patch the zero-day security bugs, and they do not update the .NET runtime or anything. In fact, today, if you have production servers, whenever there is a Microsoft security update or a patch that's coming in, and it has a .NET runtime patch, it's going to go and then update the .NET runtime, and then maybe you face that, hey, my app is not working. So that's what they're saying. They're not going to do that. Same code will run in development and production, and then developer opts into new versions, allowing breaking changes. Meaning, it's up to you. Do you want a new version of, for example, .NET Core CLR currently has beta 1 and then beta 2. So today I'm not going to run beta 2 because my Visual Studio or my environment is still not set up for beta 2, but I can opt for beta 1. So that's the kind of agility that we are talking about. It's up to us. It's up to our opt-in or opting in with the choices. Next, we talked about fast perspective. So what does fast perspective means? Development, productivity, and low friction. Basically, there is no more compilation in ASP.NET 5. Yes, you heard me right. There is no more compilation in ASP.NET 5. You do not get a binary generated out of your projects when you do Control-Shift-B. In fact, there is no Control-Shift-B with ASP.NET 5. You can do a Control-Shift-B. It just does a kind of a, as they call it, as Scott Hanson calls it, it does a spell check on your project to make sure everything is in place. So what happens with this is you can pretty much develop with Visual Studio or third-party editors, or even there is a cloud editor called Monaco. It's codenamed Monaco. That means you can just go on the cloud, you get an editor, you change something, and that's it. How is this possible? This is possible because from now onwards, that is from ASP.NET 5 onwards, there will be an in-memory compilation that .NET Runtime will do. They're using something known as Roslyn. Roslyn is the compiler as a service. So Roslyn, in fact, is an open source. They have open source Roslyn also. If you want to know how this compiler works, it's available on GitHub. You can pretty much go ahead and then use that. And of course, there are certain runtime performance that they have made with this new release with ASP.NET 5. Your apps will start faster, and each request is going to take lower memory, so that you will start serving more requests. And in fact, they say that the reduction in memory for each request is close to 90%. And of course, since it's modular, you opt into your features. For example, I don't need MVC. Well, I will just stay with my static file handler. I will just say I need a static handler, that's it. Or I can go to the level that, hey, I want to have the web listener in my project. That's it. You don't come in. So ASP.NET MVC pipeline, you don't come in. I'm going to handle everything. So yes, I can go to that level. So that's what the last bullet point is all about. I can use it as a raw socket or a framework or both. I can mix and match is what Microsoft is aiming for with ASP.NET 5. Coming to the cloud aspect of modern web development with ASP.NET 5, since we will have this core CLR, which is optimized for cloud, I can bundle that core CLR along with my application. And with this, what happens is we'll have a seamless transition from on-premise, meaning I'm a developer, I'm sitting in Bangalore, I have a laptop, and then I just did all my coding. Now I want this to be deployed onto cloud. So with this, what happens is, since because core CLR is within my folder, I don't rely on anything that's already installed on the machine. I can just seamlessly transition from on-premise to cloud and then be a cloud ready. Couple of things that they're trying to make it right with ASP.NET 5. When we say cloud ready, the configuration, of course, in cloud, you are not, you as a developer, not the one who's going to be maintaining. So, and you should never, in cloud, you should never store, maybe a connection string or something in the web.config. Of course, we have been doing it in web.config. But going forward, the way they are trying to set this right is everything will be controlled through the environmental variables. So there's a portal, there's an admin, sorry, there's a portal, and you just go and then set up all the, the configuration things and all those things. Similarly, for the session and cache, for cache, what used to happen was you have to make sure you have your code set right in order to make it work on the cloud. So now with ASP.NET 5, they're trying to make it uniform way of coding, whether it's a on-premise or if it is a cloud, the way you access cache or the way you access session, all those things, they're going to start, working towards that and then give it a uniform coding model for all the session and cache. Coming to diagnostics, yes, run debug in cloud. So basically, you have to change your configuration files, and then that would kind of restart your systems, all those things, and then tracing and logging. You wanted to trace or you wanted to log what's happening on the cloud. So with this, with the previous versions, what used to happen was when you wanted to add a trace, you had to kind of redeploy. When you wanted to add a logging, you had to redeploy. Now it's going to be a slightly different way of doing the tracing and logging on the cloud, and even in the on-premise things. Of course, coming to the cross-platform perspective from a modern web development for ASP.NET 5, as I said, ASP.NET 5 is open source. The Roslyn is open source. The ASP.NET MVC is open source. So everything is open source, and you can start contributing to that. And of course, there are certain runtimes being built now for the Windows. Of course, has the core CLR, and then there is a KRE as a code name now. It's the K runtime environment. K is in fact the code name as of now. And of course, they are building a runtime for Linux. There is a building a runtime for Mac. I won't be able to show those two today, but believe me when I say this, ASP.NET will run on Linux, and then ASP.NET can run on Mac. Editors, you have Visual Studio. You can pretty much take any text editor or cloud editors, and if you want, of course, I can run ASP.NET from the command line. I'm going to show that today. I can just pretty much run everything command line. So these were some of the aspects of modern web development which they wanted to set it right through ASP.NET 5, and then they are going ahead with that particular thing in mind. So far, what you can do if you want to try at your end, whatever I'm showing, what you will need is Visual Studio 2015 preview. Unfortunately, I'm on preview 1. Currently, there is already preview 2 which is out, but I have not installed preview 2. So what I have is a preview 1. But you need this. Without this, you won't be able to kind of do anything that I'm going to show. So as you can see, this is a Microsoft Visual Studio Ultimate 2015 preview, and it's a developer preview. If you see here, it says DP. So that's the developer preview. And now let's start the journey of ASP.NET 5. I'm going to say File, New, Project. And if you notice here in Visual Studio 2012, the web used to have one more node here. It used to say 2012, so that's gone with Visual Studio 2015 because you won't have that project types anymore. So you will pretty much have ASP.NET Web Application. Don't worry about this ASP.NET 5 class library console application. These are other types of apps that you can build on ASP.NET 5. Why would somebody build ASP.NET 5 console application? Basically, this is nothing but a console app which will host the ASP.NET, like that. So because if you're not familiar, ASP.NET MVC, ASP.NET SignalR and ASP.NET MVC at this moment can be hosted outside of IIS. I can have a command line hosting this MVC or hosting the SignalR, or so even the Web API. So that you cannot do with previous versions. So now with ASP.NET 5, it's completely like that. The whole ASP.NET can be run on, of course, it's the core CLR things, so can be run through a command console line. So I'm going to pick up ASP.NET Web Application. I will say ASP.NET 5 Web App 3. I think I already have 2. So I'm just selecting ASP.NET Web Application, give it a name, and I say OK. And you will notice 2 new things coming up here. So it says ASP.NET 5 empty, ASP.NET 5 starter web. So typically, let's start with an empty and then see what happens, and then we'll come back to the starter web. I'll explain what is happening. There's a question about ASP.NET version 5 will be available for VS 2013. At this moment, I have not heard anything from Microsoft saying like, will they make it available for 2013. Basically, it's all about tooling. ASP.NET 5 is completely NuGet package based, so there's nothing stops you from going and then referring that package. So basically, this is now running under new .NET runtime and then all those things. So so the tooling in Visual Studio 2013 has to be ready to kind of make you this. I'm pretty sure once 2015 is kind of mainstream. So as I said, this is still DP, the developer view. This is not even a CTP. Bunch of developers like me are just downloading and then playing around with it and then trying to tell them, look, okay, this works, this doesn't work. Once they reach the mainstream, I'm pretty sure they'll start looking at, okay, how do we enable maybe this ASP.NET 5 in 2013. So that's a long way around. So as you can see here, this is an empty ASP.NET 5 application. You will see that there's a new folder here called www-root. There is something new called dependencies, and of course we see the familiar references, and there's something new, project.json, and then there's something new called startup.cs. Well, with now onwards, what happens is if you have any static content, for example, the style sheet, the JavaScript, the images, you're supposed to place it in www-root. So this is not something new, but this is very new for ASP.NET guys because we never did something like this. But if you're coming from other frameworks, other web frameworks like maybe a Node or anything, this is very prevalent in those the platforms. So they usually have a separate folder called as www-root or a public or a client, and then what they do is all the static content is placed inside that because their build system picks it up from there and then kind of puts everything in place when it has to be deployed. So similarly, from now onwards, what Microsoft is saying is, hey, we're going to go with that particular convention that if you have any static files or anything, just place it in www-root, we'll pick it up. And now if I run this, so as you can see, there's no global.sax, there's no config file, and in fact, we do have dependencies. As of now, this empty project is not depending on anything. So let's check out ASP.NET references. If you look at ASP.NET references, well, this is something new, right? ASP.NET 5 Core 5.0. So this second one, which says ASP.NET Core 5.0, is the .NET Core CLR. It's the subset of the full framework. That's the core CLR that was open sourced yesterday or day before. And from now onwards, your ASP.NET 5 application will always go and then kind of compile for both these frameworks. 5.0, that's the full framework versus the and also the core framework. Well, if I go and then let me go into live zoom mode because this is interesting. So now this doesn't look like a DLL to you. This is not a DLL at all. So from now onwards in ASP.NET 5, there's no DLL reference at all. So if I right click on this guy and then look at properties, if you look at here, it says the type is a project. It's interesting. It says type project. We are used to seeing type library assembly, right? But this says, hey, this is actually a type project. So where is this coming from? This is basically coming from my project.json file saying like, hey, this is the dependency that I have. Next, if I look at the core 5.0, again, this is a project file. This is actually coming from my project.json. So let's take a look at what does this mean. So project.json, if I open that up, so this is what project.json will look like. So this is pretty similar to our .proj files, but from now onward, there's no proj file at all. You don't need a proj file because everything happens in memory at runtime. So why need a proj file? But there is a proj file available for Visual Studio to understand. Okay, there is a folder. Folder contains these files. Those kind of things. So web root is a concept, as I said, is the place where you store all the static content files. This is like even my application itself is actually a NuGet package kind of a mechanism. So it's saying, hey, this is a 1.0.0 version. And it says like, whenever you're doing a kind of a build or anything, exclude my www root. What are the package that you got to exclude packaging. Whenever I'm building my project, I can go on and say like, hey, build a package out of my project itself, right? So during that time, I don't want it to package something called as kproj. I don't want it to package something called .user. I don't want it to package something called VSP, SCC, or whatever it is. And out of the box, if you see here, I'm dependent on ASP.NET Server IIS hosting. And the framework that I'm targeting is ASP.NET 5.0, ASP.NET Core 5.0. Now, let me show you an interesting thing here now. Let me zoom out. And I'm not sure how to do this. Let me try. I'm going to dock my Solution Explorer to the left-hand side. And now let me zoom. Okay, this is better. So I want you all to keep looking at my references folder. Okay, just keep looking at references folder. As I said, by default, this particular, from now on, ASP.NET 5 will be targeting both full framework and then the core framework. Now, let's say I don't want to target the core framework. So what I can do is I can just remove this guy. Let me remove this guy. And as you can see now, my project folder is in a edit state. You see the star button there. And then I want you to keep looking at the references folder. I'm going to press Control S now. And you should see references saying restoring, and then the core framework went away. So this is what ASP.NET 5 is all about now. You do not have to spend time putting references, right click, go there, here, and everything, nothing. So let me bring it back. I'm going to bring it back and then Control S. And you would see now it's going to start bringing the core 5.0. So what do I have as part of the core when I say empty project? Well, it is empty. In fact, it is completely empty. There is nothing as such now. So let me go ahead and see this. Let me do an F5 now. I'm doing an F5. It's basically build succeeded, and it's going to start. So, well, I'll get the typical F5 experience in the. So let's see what it has. It will say 404 because there's nothing configured as of now. It is an as bare metal. So as you can see, 403. WebServer is not configured to list the contents because there's nothing, there's no file, right? So here is something that I want to talk about. I talked about no compilation, right? So let me go to the folder here where this is. So I'm going to go to the file this one. So there is a bin and there is a profile, whatever. So this is just a startup profile. But inside the bin, I have 0. There's nothing that's coming out of the bin folder, right? I have the startup.cs here, but the bin folder is completely empty. Well, I did a Control-Shift-B. As I said, it doesn't compile. It's all compilation at runtime, in-memory compilation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the startup.cs. That's where everything is hooked up. So if you can see here, this is the application builder. I will say app.run, and I will create an async delegate here. I will say context, and I will say await context.response. So there you go. So I get the complete context now, and then I can say write async, and I will say hello from ASP.NET 5 empty. Okay. Now, instead of doing an F5, you remember I talked about there's no compilation. Then so that means that I can just go in and then change my C# code behind, or whatever C# code I have, and then the runtime will pick it up, right? So let's try to do that. I'm going to dock Visual Studio to my left-hand side. Let me go and then bring back the Solution Explorer to where it was. Let me collapse this. So on the left-hand side, you are seeing that I have my code here, and I'm going to do a Control F5. I don't want to do an F5, but I'm going to do Control F5. So I did a Control F5. You will see that my Visual Studio, it doesn't have that stop, pause, whatever. That's because it's not running. Basically it's not running, and there you go. You can see that now I'm handling the request at a very low level, just right inside my startup.cs, which is nothing but the interface between your app and the hoster. So this is like a Katana or the Owen interface that's coming up here. So now what I can do is I'll come back here and then say, well, hello from ASP.NET 5, Telerik India webinar, and I'm just doing in Control yes. Okay, and now I'm coming back to my browser and then doing an F5. And there you go. It says hello from ASP.NET 5, Telerik India webinar. What I'm trying to prove is from now onwards in ASP.NET 5, you do not need to compile your code. Just go change your, the source files, whatever you have. All you need to do is Control F5. It's like, without debugging. And the browser keeps running. I can just come back here and then do anything. I can say like, hey, let me do one more thing. Telerik India webinar rocks, and Control yes. Go back here, F5, and we should see Telerik India webinar rocks. And there you did see that there is that lag of close to 5 to 8 seconds or something. So mind you, this is still a developer preview. So Microsoft is working towards making that the compilation and then making that changes to go faster. So I'm pretty sure they're going to make it better, and then we should see like a 3 seconds refresh rate or something like that in the coming future. So this is something about ASP.NET 5 empty web application. There's nothing. So let's go and then actually see a MVC application. So by the way, in ASP.NET 5, there is nothing called Web API, there is nothing called Web Pages, there is nothing called MVC. Now everything is one, and that's ASP.NET MVC. That's the MVC 6. So don't get confused. It's ASP.NET 5, and then Web Forms 4.6, and then it is ASP.NET MVC 6. Okay, and then in MVC 6, the complete things about Web API, Web Pages, and then MVC have been merged together. So there's only one technology, and that's MVC. And then MVC will give you Web API, MVC will give you Web Pages, MVC will give you your normal MVC things. Now I'm going to go and then say File, New, Project, and I will create a web application. But this time what I'm going to do is, so let's say I'm going to say ASP NET 5 Web App 4, and I'm going to create this time an ASP.NET 5 starter web application. So notice what is happening here. If I select Web Forms, which is the older way of, which is targeting the full framework, I can still select MVC, Web API, and all those things. But with the next version of ASP.NET, which is ASP.NET 5, by default, when I select the starter web, it says, hey, MVC and Web API are out of the box available. So there's no mechanism for me to again go and check it, because it's already there. It's always there. That's what the 5 will do. So I'm going to say OK. So now we're going to see an empty starter web application, which is nothing but our typical ASP.NET MVC app. And we're going to go over a couple of things here. So let's give it time to create this app. There are some question, if you are already installed VS 2013, is it possible to install VS 2015? Absolutely. As of now, this is a developer preview, so the developer preview runs side by side. In fact, I have Visual Studio 2013 Ultimate running in this box, and I also have the Visual Studio 2015 Ultimate developer preview. So it doesn't matter, they are two different things as of now. And we are done with the project building, so let's go and kind of take a look at what we have. Well, there's nothing different. If you see here, it's still the same. We still have the models, we still have the views, we still have the controllers, we still have the entity framework migration, everything going on. So let's go back. And let's take a look at www.root. This is what I was talking about. You typically will now start putting all the static content like CSS, the libs. Libs are nothing but your JavaScript files. So I have the Bootstrap, I have the jQuery, everything. So the static content should go in here. So if you have an image file, the image file should be here, and you reference it typically like / CSS, then whatever it is, / your root, then lib, then whatever you think. For example, if I go to the views and look at the shared and then open the layout.cs HTML, and this is what I was talking about. So if you see here, I'm using lib, Bootstrap, CSS, site.css. This is basically just a convention that's going forward. You keep all your static files there. And let's take a look at the dependencies. So basically, if you've not heard of Bower, Bower is a kind of an NuGet package manager for client-side frameworks. So you can just do Bower and then Angular Bower and then something which is going to bring it down. And then also it has a Node package manager because many of them use Node in order to, the Bower would need a Node in order to go and then invoke certain things. And that's the dependency side of it. So if you look at the Bower, it has a Bootstrap, the Bower packaging. It's coming from the Bower. jQuery is again coming from Bower. It's not the NuGet package manager. So NPM is getting the Grunt Bower task. So Grunt is the client-side JavaScript task system. So wherein I can go in and say like, hey, I have 10 JavaScript files, so when I'm doing a compilation, I want you to go minify them, I want you to bundle them, and then give me one output. So that's what Grunt is capable of doing. That's the client-side tasking system. And references is pretty similar. Here is an interesting thing I didn't talk about, so let me bring it a live zoom. If I expand ASP.NET 5.0, it says that, hey, ASP.NET 5.0 is actually dependent on so many packages. So as I said, there is no DLL reference from now onward. So this is something, if you haven't followed ASP.NET MVC, I was talking about ASP.NET MVC is available as a NuGet package. There you go. So this ASP.NET MVC is actually a package that ASP.NET 5 depends on. And now if I expand ASP.NET MVC, it has dependencies on Razor, C#, MS Corlib, system.core. Let me right click and then see the properties here. And this is what I was talking about. See the type here, it says package. So where is this package available? So it says, hey, the package is available in C:\users nagaraj.kpm packages ASP.NET MVC. So let's go to this particular location for a while. Let me zoom out. Let me get my Explorer. And here is where Microsoft is now going to keep all the packages that you need. It's known as .kpm or K package manager. Of course, the letter K is just a code name as of now. They're going to change it to some business name. We don't know what it is. I think it has been already decided. So now here, if you see, all my packages are all available. So here is MVC available here as a NuGet package. So I can go in, double click this guy, and I can see that, hey, this is a 6.0 beta 1. So that's what I was talking about. MVC is 6. So this is the NuGet package, and you don't believe me? I hope you know that the extension for a NuGet package is .nupkg, or it's known as a .nupkg. I don't know why they call it like that, but it's NUPKG or NUPKG, so NuGet package. And if I had a NuGet package manager, I could open up this particular package and then just take a look at it. And then if I look at the lib, so there is the full framework libraries, the core framework libraries. So if I open up core 50, here is ASP.NET MVC with a 63 KB footprint for the core CLR. And if I open up ASP.NET full framework, it's pretty similar, almost the same. If you see here, it's a 61 KB. And so that's the difference. Like, that's how from now onwards it will be. It's completely, package based. There is somewhere a KRE runtime also, so we're gonna come back to that. Or, yeah, we'll come back. Let me see. Where's the KRE runtime? No, not this one. We'll come back. So basically, everything is now a packages. Typically, so now let's say you want to bring in Newtonsoft. So there is no Newtonsoft here, right? So it's pretty simple. Just go open up project.json, and what I will do is keep looking at my right-hand side. I'm not sure if it is you guys are able to see that, but with the resolution, I'm not able to kind of bring it closer together. But let me try. Okay, now keep looking at the ASP.NET 5.0. Another interesting thing in the project.json is now if I just type N, it's taking some time for me on my system, but you will see IntelliSense coming up now. Let's give it a second. You can see my Visual Studio has gone to not responding because my system is overloaded. But yeah, here you go. If you see here, I just typed N. So what it is doing is it is searching remote NuGet packages which start with N. And I know I need Newtonsoft.json. I can just say this, and then I say colon, and then you will see something happening here. You see, these are all the available versions of a Newtonsoft.json package available, and then the folder icon here means that this package is available on my disk at this moment of time. But there is a 3.5.8, 4.0.1, 4.0.2 available in NuGet server. So it can actually directly go and then pull it off from a NuGet server, or it can actually add a NuGet package reference. So I'm going to take the latest, which is, let's say 6.0.4, which is available here. Now what should have happened is, let me zoom out and keep looking at this right-hand side, the ASP.NET 5.0 references folder, and then ASP.NET 5.0 core 5.0. Now the project.json is not saved. I'm going to do Control yes now. And the right-hand side, you should start seeing, it's going to go and then start doing some stuff. And there you go. The Newtonsoft.json 6.0.4 has been added to my references. So I can go back and then undo this. Let me delete this. Keep looking at the right-hand side. It will go away now. Control yes. The Newtonsoft.json goes away, right? So bring it back, and it comes back. The Visual Studio does a package restore in the backend, and you will see that the same Newtonsoft.json is available here, and it's available here. Now let's open up what else I have to talk about. So that's the project.json file, and yeah, let me go over the project.json a little bit. So these are the dependencies for this project. So from now onwards, all you need to do is just open up the project.json, say what dependency you want, and that's it. It manages. And here is the frameworks that I'm targeting. I'm targeting both the ASP.NET full framework, the .NET full framework 5.0, and I'm also targeting .NET Core framework 5.0. So if you see here, there are certain tasks that I've said. Post restore, I want you to call npm install. Whenever I'm preparing, I want you to call grunt bower install. So if there's any bower packages missing, it will get it. If there's any npm packages missing, so it will get it. And of course, we talked about the pack exclude, and then we talked about the exclude. Commands is interesting. So if from now onwards, what we can do is, as I said, I can run the complete ASP.NET application through command line. So here, I have created a couple of commands here. Now, this is a good time to talk about something called as KRE, or the K runtime environment. What I've done is I've already set up my system to actually work with the KRE. So the Visual Studio is in fact under the hood using the KRE to do all these things. That's the hosting. That's the hoster. Basically, there is a K runtime environment which loads your the core CLR or the things and then start working from there onward. So in fact, Visual Studio, when I do a control F5, it's doing nothing but calling a K runtime and then saying like, hey, launch this web application at this particular URL. So if you see here, I'm saying, hey, use the Microsoft ASP.NET hosting, but I want you to use this ASP.NET server.web listener. So that's the raw listener that I have. And I want you to run the web application at this particular URL, that is localhost:5000. So that's what the URL that I want you to run. Now what I can do is I can go to a command line. Let me see which is this folder. I want, this is web app 4. So let's go up and get the web app 4 folder. Here is web app 4. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to say CD. Okay, now here's the thing. So if I do a K, so this is the run. K is like a it's basically the one of the commands that we use. So if you see here, it says K watch, K packages, K configuration, K port, K version. So here's a little trick that I learned watching Scott Hanselman. How many of you know how to quickly figure out how many CLR versions you have on your system? I don't want you to go look at some folders. I'll give you a command. I'll give you a command prompt, and then I want you to quickly tell me how many CLR versions have been installed on your system. I'll give you 5 seconds. Just kind of go over that. You just have a command prompt, and I want you to tell me how can I figure out how many .NET framework versions are installed on the system. 5 seconds. Just type it out on the question answers panel if you know. I'm going to count to 5 and then I'll give the answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I learned that there was already a a command line switch or the command known as CLR word. If I say CLR word, it's going to tell me how many CLR versions have been installed on my system. What happened? Yeah. Okay, I need to be in the Visual Studio command prompt. So let me come back to that. So command prompt. Let's open up Visual Studio command prompt. So here, if I say CLR word, it will actually tell me, hey, you have 2 versions of CLR that's been installed here. There you go. This is the quickest way to figure out, okay, how many versions of CLR I have installed on my system. Instead of going to C:\program files, Microsoft.NET, SDK, frameworks, blah, 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 the folders, you can just type CLR word on the command prompt, the Visual Studio command prompt, and it will actually tell you, hey, you have 2 versions of Visual Studio installed. Similar to this, we have something called as K, and I can say like, KVM or K version manager list. So how many versions of this new runtime do I have on my system, right? So it's actually going and then kind of taking time to come back. So there you go. So let me actually do a clear screen, go to zoom mode, and then we'll do a KVM list now. So at this moment on my system, what I have is I have actually 4 versions of the new runtime running. So I have the .NET 5.0 full framework CLR, and then I have the .NET 5.0 core CLR. So if you see here, it says 1.0 beta 1 core CLR, beta 1 CLR targeted towards x86 and then targeted toward AMD64. And then I also have beta 2 installed, but my Visual Studio is still DP1, so I cannot use beta 2. So what I can do is, so let me show you a neat little trick now. So I am actually inside my web application folder. Remember what we have said here. I'm not going to run Visual Studio. Rather, I'm going to use this command called web, and I will say, hey, and the command says that I want you to host this web application at this URL using this particular listener. Okay. So now I'm going to come back here and then just say kweb. It says it will now what it will do is it will go host the the web application using the web listener using that ASP.NET hosting. and we should see, like, it says started, and then I can go and then browse to that particular web application. Did not roll directly, not from. Okay, this is not good. So let me check what is happening. I am inside. Oh, I know what happened. So as I said, my Visual Studio DP1 is actually targeted towards beta 1, but it's been actually set to, if you see here, the default is actually set to beta 2. So all I need to do is I have to say kvm use, and I will say 1.0.beta1. I'm just actually setting what version of .NET runtime it has to use. So that is the biggest change you will see in ASP.NET 5. I'm actually telling, hey, I want you to use this version of the .NET runtime. So now if I say kvm list, you will see that the default version of the .NET runtime would have changed now. As you can see here, now I'm targeting beta 1 CLR x86. So I'm going to go ahead, do a clear screen. I'll say kweb. Now we should see it kicking off the web server, doing a it will start listening on the web listener, and then the web application will be hosted at localhost :5000. So just give it a couple of seconds. In the meantime, I'll just get my browser up. In fact, when I do a Control F5 from the Visual Studio, it in fact does the same thing. There you go. We have our web application started now. This is completely a different thing. So now I can go in and then say localhost :5000. And we should see a typical ASP.NET MVC application coming up, because that's what the app is all about. There you go. We have ASP.NET 5, it's coming up, and now here is something that I will do. Let me close this. Now this guy is running at 5000, and this guy is actually targeted to full .NET framework. Now I'm going to open up one more command prompt, and I will say kvm list. And if you see here, it's actually listed under beta 2. So I will change this to say kvm use, but I want you to use beta 1 core CLR. I want to target this version of command prompt, or this instance of command prompt, to core CLR. So I will say core CLR. So now it's now set to use the core CLR. So I'm completely changing the .NET runtime that my application should be using now. If you see here, this instance of command prompt, or this instance of the hoster, will use the core CLR instead of the full framework CLR. Remember, I told that the ASP.NET 5 application will be built for both targeting the full framework CLR versus the core framework CLR. So, so now I can actually go back to the application folder, which is our web app 4. I'll say cd here, and I will say, hey, run this web app, but I want you to run on a different port, and that port would be http localhost :5010. I'm running the same web application in 2 different ports, in 2 different ASP.NET runtime. So that's what ASP.NET 5 is all about. So let's see that. So now we have, so here is the first one, which is running at 5000, and it's using the full framework CLR. So let me keep it here. And here is 5010. Let's keep it here. And there you go. Our ASP.NET web application targeting a core CLR runtime is now running at 5010, but it is the same set of code bases, right? So let me bring in my browsers now. And on this side, on the left-hand side, we have the localhost 5000. So let me go to localhost 5000. and we should see the application coming up. So let me bring in maybe an IE. So I'll tear a tab here. So let me collapse this guy, and there you go. On the left-hand side, we see localhost 5000. So on the right-hand side, now I'm going to say HTTP localhost 5010. Remember, this particular command line is running at 5010. So that means there is a web application hosted at 5010. So let me run that. And we have, voila, we have two different applications running at two different locations, two different ports, but it's the same web application. So now what happens is you do not have to worry about your servers getting affected with because of the what do you call a .NET runtime being installed, and then an older application will break. So now let's quickly do something. Now let's say I want to package this up and then put it to cloud, and then I want it to run as is, right? So what I can do is I can go here, I can right click, and I can say publish. I already have a publish profile set up for local system. So I'll go make a folder here. The folder was C:work, webinars, today's webinar, and then publish. And then I'll remove this. This was just practicing, so as you can see, I'm deleting everything, so there is nothing inside this folder now. So yeah, so as you can see, there's nothing inside this publish folder. Now what I'll do is I'll pick up the file system, and it is saying what's the profile. I'll just say local machine profile, and I'll say okay, and it is asking me for a target location. Maybe I can copy paste. So I will say the target location for publish is actually here. So there you go. I say next. It is asking me which target, what should I target? What's the CLR version that you want me to target, and then send it. So I can package it with multiple CLRs and then do it. So I'm going to target it for a core CLR beta 1 for x86. I'm going to say next, and it says okay, done. So it's going to do a publish. So we should start seeing folders appearing in this publish folder. We are 3 minutes overboard with the webinar, so just give me 2 more minutes, and then I should be able to, kind of show this last demo, and then we'll wrap up the webinar. So the point I'm trying to make here is you just publish your the application if you want into a folder, and then you can just take that folder, put it into a USB drive, take it into another machine, and then start running from there. There you go. What it is doing now is it's now generating all the packaging that is required. And whatever commands that we had in the project.json file is now output as a web.cmd or the command file. So all I need to do now is to run this command prompt, and then I have my complete application coming up. So if you see here www.root, and there you go, I have the bin. So bin will pretty much have asp.loader.dll. So that's the DLL that the new runtime will look for. That's like a startup.cs, the Katana, the Owen startup class, and that's it. So now we are done with this. What I can do is I can go to a command prompt now, and I will say cd, and I will say web. Yeah, I am calling the command prompt the cmd file, so I said web. So what it does internally is, let me show you what it has written inside the web.cmd. It's basically, it is going to call klr.exe as a kruntime.exe. So let me bring that particular. So if you see here, all it is doing is, hey, go to the app root folder. From the current folder, there is a packages folder that contains a core CLR exe called klr.exe. I want you to run the host this particular web application using that runtime. So that's what it is doing. And if you see here, I just said web, and it has started that. So where is the app root? App root is here. Where is the packages? The package is here, and it contains the complete core CLR that is required for you to run it from any folder. So you just saw me running a complete web application from a folder. If you see here, this is my folder. This is some other folder here. If you see here, ASP NET vNext February 215/publish/web. So that's the folder it's now running. Now I can open up a browser and I can say localhost 5000. Remember in the project.json, the URL that was set was actually 5000, the port number 5000. So my browser is up. I'm now going to say HTTP localhost 5000, and then you will see that I get back the same ASP.NET application without any changes. There you go. I have the same ASP.NET 5 application without any changes. Now let's quickly do an unscripted demo. I'm going to stop this, and what I'm going to do is, let me see what I was trying to say. So maybe I'm going to go to my controller and let me see if I can do something. I will say view bag of foo is equal to bar, and then I'll open up my views, home, index, and then maybe where should we do this? Maybe here I will say @viewbag.foo from the view bag. So now I'm going to start just my, so you saw that, I changed a CS file, but I don't have to recompile or do anything. So now if everything works, that same whatever viewback thing that I have done, it should come up here. So let's see, that's what I'm trying to do. So just give me a second, it's 4:08. We'll take a couple of seconds maybe. So I'm going to do an F5. Okay, I messed up something. So view data, that's fine. What did I do? View bag. Yeah, let's try this now. I think I'm missing my script. So what would have happened is, I make a change in the code behind, and then I can just pretty much, without redeploying, right? My next time when I go to the browser and then do an F5, it would have automatically compiled that particular code and then given us the output. So that was the point of ASP.NET 5 is you don't need to do that compilation step. So that was kind of a previous era now. So all you need to do is just go change it. The Roslyn compiler comes into picture at runtime. There's a new JIT, it's known as RioJIT, and they all work hand in hand, and then you have the code coming up with at runtime with like within a second the code will be compiled, and then it knows that there's a change in the source file, and then it will automatically deploy that. Well, that's typically demo part of it. I know you guys are already giving away the code there. I know I missed some script there. That's okay. No, this is not the one. So Shift F5. So that was the demo, ASP.NET 5 in action. So ASP.NET 5 summary. What is cloud ready? Both vNext, I've still kept it as vNext, but .NET 5 and then .NET 5 Core, which is nothing. So somebody has been asking about what is the difference between ASP.NET 5.0 and then ASP.NET Core for 5.0. There are two different CLRs that are coming into picture now. So one is the full framework, and another one is a core framework, or the core CLR as we call it. And the core CLR is cloud optimized. Its footprint is very small. It contains the same GC. It contains the same the CLR, everything, but the footprint is very small, so that's why I was able to actually take it in a folder and then run it from there. Modular design, both of them are typically now, as of now, if they support the modular design, that is, I can bring in features of ASP.NET as NuGet packages. I didn't show dependency injection, but as with next version of ASP.NET, you get dependency injection out of the box. You do not have to use anything third party, but it's already there. But it's up to you. You want to use that or third parties? It's okay. So they're going to start coming out or talking about consistent tracing and debugging that will be there. Faster build, no build step at all. You just go chain the source code, come back to the browser F5, and you will start seeing code reflected. That's through the Roslyn compiler. It's open source, and then fully side by side. As of now, the .NET framework basically framework deployed inside an application. So that's what it is. So I can actually deploy the core CLR within my app, right? That's what I did. I packaged everything, but that's not the case with the full framework, because full framework you cannot do that way. For startup, low memory, high throughput, so that's what the cloud optimizer will give you. This is typically what ASP.NET 5 is all about. So today we wanted to take the opportunity to kind of come out and then let you guys know that you're going to be building web in a completely different way. With that,